Hello, and welcome to the Natural State Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Anthony Gustin. It is my belief that the natural state of any living organism is health, and that our artificial habitat has forced us into having artificial health problems. This show is my attempt to dive deep and learn about using nutrition, sleep, movement, relationships, and more to help you reclaim your natural state of health in a modern world and show you how to thrive in an environment that's stacked against you. If you enjoyed today's show, you can find out more details and information at dranthonygustin.com. This week on the show, I welcome my friend David Nurse. I was really pumped to have David on the show because he deals a lot with mindset, and I get questions all the time, and I'm working with people constantly trying to help them improve their health. And a lot of times it's not the information that people are lacking, it's the right mindset and sort of structure of how to get their goals that they actually want accomplished. And David works with NBA players, has for a really long time, and has an amazing framework to help us out. This is one of the most important things you can do to get where you want to be, whether that's at work or personally. But I want people to think about this more for an emphasis of their health goals, how to bust through sort of negative self-talk and get to where they want to be. It's sometimes much, much easier than you would think. So tune in, and I hope you enjoy all that David has to offer. This episode is brought to you by Neurohacker Collective. I've been using their products on and off the last few years and have always been a huge fan of how they formulate their products, their dosing, and they just don't mess around. So Dr. Greg Kelly, their lead product formulator, is actually on the podcast previously if you want to check that episode out. But you can trust that Neurohacker Collective is always doing 100% dosing backed up by research. A lot of other companies, what they do is they sprinkle in amounts of ingredients so that way you're not actually getting the full amount that is required to have a physiological effect. You just get a little sprinkling and dosing in there. Their products are so effective that Dr. Kelly actually recommends taking 2 days off a week, and their serving size is 7 really huge capsules, which just shows how much active ingredient they actually put in their product. I am personally a huge fan of their caffeine-free version of their product, Quality of Mind, and I take it on an empty stomach with exogenous ketones in the morning when I know that I really want to get a bunch of uninterrupted deep work hours done. I feel in the zone for literally hours, and the best part is there's no crazy crash afterwards. If you're not a nootropic person, they also have an amazing product called Eternus that contains all the precursors to NAD, which is far more effective than taking direct NAD supplements to reduce oxidative damage to your cells. Again, love the formulation and how they went about making this product. If you want to try out any Neurohacker Collective products, just head to neurohacker.com and use the code AG15 for 15% off all of their products. That's neurohacker.com and code AG15 for 15% off all of their products. This episode of the Natural State Podcast is brought to you by Four Sigmatic. Four Sigmatic is my favorite purveyor of all things mushrooms and adaptogens. Not sure why these things are important? Well, you can start with my episode I did with Four Sigmatic founder Tara on this subject, but just understand that mushrooms are not part of either animal or plant kingdom. They have unique health properties that are very, very well researched. Everything between boosting mental clarity all the way to naturally supporting the immune system, which I'm sure is something that everybody cares about these days. Also, Four Sigmatic products have been stocked in our kitchen at the Perfect Keto offices for years now and are probably the second most consumed product next to our own. Their most popular product of coffee mixed with chaga, cordyceps, lion's mane mushrooms, etc. Everything to basically take the jitter away from coffee and add a lot of brain boosting elements is the fan favorite at the office and keeps everyone powered through long days without crashing, like they probably would if they had an IV drip of cold brew like most other startups do. Alas, I have been off of caffeine for the last 6 months or so. I've been trying to give my body a rest and recover and get my nervous system back to a point where it's not always thinking it's getting chased by a lion. So what I've been doing is I've been using their adaptogen powder, which has 10 different mushrooms, roots, leaves, berries, and superfoods, with their mushroom blend that has another 10 different types of mushrooms every day for the last 6 months or so. And I've actually personally seen a huge improvement in my HRV, stress levels, recovery, etc. If I'm facing down a really big work day, I actually added an extra packet of both their lion's mane and cordyceps and mix all of that together with a scoop of very exogenous ketones, and it lights my brain up like nothing else can. I've asked the team at Four Sigmatic to hook you guys up, and so they're giving all listeners of the Natural State Podcast 15% off of your Four Sigmatic order. Just go to foursigmatic.com/AG15 or enter code AG15, that's AG15 at checkout. That is FOURSIGMATIC.com/AG15 to receive 15% off your order. David, thank you for joining me today, my man.
Anthony, appreciate you having me on.
So yeah, you specialize in something that I think a lot of people who listen to the show struggle with sometimes. And it is, I don't even know what you call it, behavior management.
Yeah.
How would you say what your specialty is?
At the core, I would say it's mindset development. I mean, there's a lot of pieces that go into it, like total optimization, nutrition, sleep. And what I do for NBA players overall is basically helping these highest performing athletes on one of the most pressure-packed stage step on the floor every night, being at their full 100% capabilities, both physically and mentally. So in a nutshell, I would say it's mindset development.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things that when people are trying to, tackle new health outcomes, especially, they get in their own way, whether that's lack of confidence, whether that is, being afraid, not establishing proper habits. And I think that, for you to be able to work at the level that you're working at, sort of an elite level, working with NBA players, there's so much you learn there that you can take back to the average Joe.
Yeah, absolutely. And at the core, the main thing that make these NBA players great is the habits that they build, and not just the habits that they build, but the lifestyle that they make it. And a lot of us, I mean, we go through, we set our goals. We want to reach this point, or even in nutrition, we want to lose a certain amount of weight, but it's really daunting and tough to get there by just looking at the big picture. And same thing with these NBA players. Like they say, hey, I want to be an all-star. I want to be a Hall of Famer. That's great. I love that. But how do you get there? You need actual tools and actual steps to do it. And that's what I do in the book Pivot and Go that I've wrote is all about these steps, these 1% steps that you can take daily to just compound and build on your habits. And habits are great. Love habits, love routines, super into all the morning routines and everything like that. But it's making it a lifestyle is when you find your complete rhythm and find, like you were talking about, find your self-awareness, your confidence in yourself. Because Anthony, the biggest defender, if we're going to use basketball terms for ourselves, is ourself. We wake up every morning with self-doubt. Self-doubt creeps in. And I have in the book, there's action steps at the end of each chapter that will take you through different ways that you can take these 1% daily steps. And one of them I have is called the foggy mirror. Meaning when we wake up every morning, our mirror is foggy. There's self-doubt. There's imposter syndrome. There's just thinking we're not good enough. And that mirror is foggy. And we get the choice, our superhero power of choice to wipe that mirror clean. So I have people, I have players, I have CEOs, high performers that I work with. Every morning when they wake up, they walk over to the mirror and do a hand action that they're wiping the mirror clean, wiping away that fog, living in their true self-awareness, confidence.
Is this something that you have had to work through for yourself so you develop this? Or, I mean, what is even the path that you took look like to work with the professional athletes and everything?
Yeah, absolutely. I've worked through it and I continue to work through it. My path is I poured everything into playing in the NBA. Now being 6'2" and unathletic, unable to dunk a basketball and growing up in the middle of nowhere cornfields of Iowa, it didn't quite work out the way I had it planned. Parents probably should have told me to play golf or tennis, but fast forward to I'm playing overseas. I put in like every single day is working on getting into the NBA. And I mean, I got to play college basketball, but yet I still didn't have any type of backup plan. Everything was geared towards playing in the NBA. Now I'm playing in the second division team in Spain, and it sounds cool, but it's more like the Will Ferrell semi-pro. They're more concerned about drinking beers at halftime than actually the game itself and putting in the work. And I'm here doing 2-a-days, these film studies, everything, and I get cut from this team. Not only all my dreams, all my goals, everything that I put into my life taken away, it's turned upside down and my head's rubbed in the dirt. So I come back and I'm living on my parents' recliner chair for 5 months, feeling bad for myself. And my mom would always say these motivational, inspirational quotes. And usually I was like, yeah, Mom, whatever, in one ear, out the other ear. But she said one that stuck with me. She was doing dishes and she said, David, when one door closes, 4 open, and an entire beachfront patio overlooking the ocean. And I was like, wow, that's different. I've never heard that before. And it triggered in me. And I realized that everything that I had put in, everything that I thought was a failure that I put into play in the NBA was actually to coach others. And it was to help others. It was help these players become NBA players, because I'd learned it. I'd studied it. I just couldn't physically do it myself. And that's when I made my life pivot, realizing that, hey, this is my true gift. And I had a friend of mine, his name's Aaron Baines. He plays for the Phoenix Suns now. He was my teammate actually over in Greece the year before. So I started working with him, and he liked the stuff we were doing. He'd bring his friends, and then agents would get involved. And eventually I was a development coach with the Brooklyn Nets. So it's all about realizing that, hey, that door closed and I could have felt horrible for myself and given up, but that just opened something so much greater.
Right. I mean, what are some of the things that when that happens with people, when they stumble with goals or if they fall short, I mean, what are sort of the immediate things? I mean, obviously just the mindset thing, and having an inspirational mom can help a lot, but everyone lucky as you, it's like, what are some of the first things people could do? They hit a roadblock, maybe they're trying to lose fat, hit a plateau, or, they have a little rebound, have a cheat meal. Like what were the actionable things that somebody could do to turn things around?
Yeah, that's such a great question. And I started off even with my NBA players. What are your goals? So I want to know, because we got to create a blueprint, a map. Like, it's one thing to just talk about the whys and what you want in a broad sense, but we need to narrow it down and have exact specific goals. So the first thing I would tell somebody who's feeling bad, like trying to work on a diet or lose weight, like, be really specific. Say, hey, I'm going to lose 10 pounds and 3% body fat in 3 months by this date. Put it down, mark it. Here's how I'm going to do it. I'm going to work out 4 times a week for an hour. I'm going to do this workout on Monday, or I'll play some pickup basketball on Thursday, and have this scheduled in. And literally on your calendar, mark out these workout days as business meetings. You're not going to miss a business meeting with yourself. This is like so important to do that. So I would have them map it out, their goals, write down what that goal is. And like, we're talking about just nutrition and diet and losing weight, but it could be, like, for my NBA, one of my NBA players 2 years ago, he was a bench player, and he said he wanted to be an all-star in 2020. Wrote down the exact city, the spot, the hotel he was staying at, everything. Put it on his fridge, put it in his phone, put it in his pocket, and he lived in that. And his name's Domas Sabonis. He became an NBA all-star this year in 2020. Exactly what he had spoken into existence. So it's an actionable,
really clarifying down to the very specific detail what it is you want. Is it why as well, or like, how do you think about that?
Yeah, it's making it exactly what you want. Because if you say too broad of things, like I want to get healthier, I want to lose weight, you don't really hold yourself accountable for that. And there's a big subconscious piece in our minds that if we say something's going to happen, we actually have it, speak it out into existence and tell others about it, and then see it constantly throughout our days. Like, I'll have these guys that I work with carry their goals around with them in their wallet. They'll have it written on their phone. The more you see it, the more you live in that moment. And it's super true, because we have 50,000 self-talk moments a day where we're talking to ourselves 50,000 times. 80% of those are negative. Like, what if we could pivot that to 80% positive? We'd be living in these dreams. So it's all about speaking your goals into existence, seeing them daily, making them very, very narrowed and exact. And then it's about taking the steps that you put in that process, these 1% daily steps, knowing that, like you said, if you mess up, if you fall off the horse, that's okay. Just get back on. Nobody's trajectory to success has been a straight line. It's always curvy, always windy, but continually to progress upwards.
Right. Do you have people really establish the why and like get a specific what as far as what they want? What about the why? Because I've just noticed myself, when people sort of eliminate that step, they can get distracted, they can get pulled away from it really easily. But if you have a concrete why and understanding, it just helps prioritize every task you come in contact with across whatever time domain it takes to get to the goal.
Yeah, that's so good. And the why is the first step. Like, you have to know your why. If you're just doing it for your own gain and for your own, like, just basically for yourself, it's never going to fulfill you. There's always going to be something more that you want, another rung on the ladder you want to climb. But if you're doing it for something more, if you're doing it for others, if you're doing it for your family, if you're doing it for a bigger picture than yourself, that's where your true purpose comes in. And Obviously, everybody's got their different passion. And I encourage people to follow their passion, but have your passion. Yes. Have your passion with purpose, then mix it with these action steps with the hows that we're talking about. And that literally is the blueprint, the breakthrough blueprint to your success, while understanding, hey, my success is going to be different than somebody else's. Success is just a term that we decide. It's not what the world says it is. Just like failure is not what the world says it is. Like in the book, I talk a lot about redefining terms, because we've all grown up with certain words and phrases that have connotations with them, and failure is a negative one. But it's about pivoting that mindset of failure, that it's not just, hey, failure is how you learn. It's the only way you learn. It's not just, it could be an option. It is the only way you learn. So you embrace this failure, knowing it's going to take you a step closer to what your goals are.
Yeah. I mean, this is another thing too. I think that success gets pounded into people's heads very early in life as usually like, a monetary thing, achievement, X, Y, or Z, but societal success. And this can be redefined by you whenever you want. And there's another thing too. Like, I don't know how often you recommend people to shift their goals or their mindset, but you're allowed to reevaluate what you want.
Yeah.
Like looking back, if I would have set goals when I was 12 and then just continue to do that, like I'm a very different person than when I was 12. I like different music. I like different food, things like that. Like I want different things out of my life. And so I think that having a sort of regular point to redefining success for yourself is really important with the people I work with, because maybe you start going down a certain path and your menu of options is just changed significantly.
There's no doubt. And you're absolutely able and allowed and should be encouraged to change that. That is the epitome of what a pivot is. Like, just giving myself, for example, I thought I was going to play in the NBA. Nope, that didn't work. I thought I was going to coach in the NBA. I was one of the youngest coaches in the NBA, like a hot and up and comer. New staff came in. I was out of the NBA. I thought my life was over. Now I get to speak. I get to work with players individually. I get to write books. Like and when I went into writing this book, when I told people, hey, I'm an author, I'm writing a book, like nobody associated that with me. Like, everybody thought David, basketball coach. No one ever thought author, but that's one of those things I say, this is my goal. I spoke it into existence, and I knew that I could redefine, I could pivot what my goals are. And I think people get so stuck in that. Like we overestimate what we can do in 2 years, but we underestimate what we can actually do in 10 years. And it's going to keep shifting. It's going to keep growing, but knowing that, hey, it's okay if you want to shift and pivot those goals.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think that success can be spending more time with your family. It can be working in yourself in certain ways. It can be financial if you want it to be, but that's up for you to decide. You sort of write your own story.
Yeah. And I have a chapter in the book called The Rich Life. Like, what is being rich to you? You make that decision. If rich is really just looking at your bank account or having other people around you think that you're the greatest, or having 1 million followers on Instagram, like, I guess that's okay, but it's going to drive you nuts. But why not be rich in how much you love your kids, or how much you love your wife or your spouse? Like, there's different, and that's the way that you're pivoting that word of rich, which we've grown up where our subconscious has told us one thing, society tells us one thing, but that's for our choice. We don't have to look at it that way.
Right. So, I mean, how do you think about success right now for yourself?
I think about success as the people that I can impact to be encouraged in what their passion is. So, like, for me, if this book, like, honestly, I'm like, if it can help somebody get encouraged in what they want and understand that they're not stuck, they can take these steps and their goal is achievable, then this book is a huge success. So, like, for me personally, I don't really I do set specific goals, like we talked about, where I want to be, like a New York Times bestseller, speaking in front of 100,000 people audience. But more, it's in the purpose of why I'm doing it. Knowing that more than me getting some accomplishment, I get so juiced up and pumped up when I see somebody else encouraged. Like when one of my players has a really good game or becomes an all-star, or someone I'm working with, a company just like finds their true breakthrough and they're living their life with more joy. So that's really where I find my terminology of success.
So how are you breaking that down now into these actionable steps?
To help others find their success?
Yeah. Just like as an example for what you're doing and sort of how your life is mapped out here, and how like all the steps you highlight in the book. I was just curious as far as like how you would use it as an example to sort of talk through your method here.
Yeah. So, I mean, my method is literally like, I'll ask somebody, you know, when I'm working with somebody, like, I want to know what their goal is. Like, that's the first step. That's their goal. And like we talked about, it's your passion and your purpose. And then we're going to take these daily steps, and there's different tools to use. Like one of the tools that I have that's a very powerful tool I call mental dictatorship. And what that means is that I've myself personally for years and years, I wanted to know how long it took for somebody to start something and actually be able to get through it, because the starting is the hardest part. Like for myself, I get into an ice cold shower for 3 minutes every morning, and the start sucks. But I found on average over time, like NBA players working out or whatever it might be, business meetings, at 17 seconds is the magic number for your mind to kick into mental dictatorship, to know that you can overcome what you're going through. So if you start it 17 seconds in, you can finish it. So that's one of the tools that I use. And there's a lot of tools in this book that'll take you through these steps to get there. And I base it on 29 days. 28 days is the generally accepted term to create a habit. And habits are great, routines are great, but we want to make it a lifestyle. So on day 29, it's your choice to make it a lifestyle. And it's really all about, setting your goals, having a blueprint and a game plan to get there, taking daily steps to get there, understanding that it might not happen on your time, on the time you expect it will, but it will happen if you don't quit and you don't give up. Like, for example, just a quick story is my uncle's the head coach for the Toronto Raptors, and they won the NBA championship last year. And everybody's like, oh, wow, first year head coach, he struck lightning in a bottle, got lucky. No, he's been coaching for 27 years as a head coach in countries people don't even know play basketball. I've been over in England with him when he was taping players' ankles, popping popcorn at halftime. Like, he has been living in that championship mode. When he was 22 and he became a head coach at a small school, he put a picture of himself holding up the NBA trophy on his fridge, and he lived in that. And every day he knew he was going to take a step closer to that, but treating every situation like it was that championship situation. So great quote is 10 years to become an overnight success, but actually in his case, 27 years. So it's really comes down to taking the 1% steps, understanding that each day is a preparation for an opportunity to come, and just continuing to go at it. And with the term that I call relentless consistency.
Yeah. What are some of the things that people can think of? It's, people may hear the term lifestyle and have different connotations with that, but some of the things that people can actually do to change things from just the short-term action to actually making it part of their lifestyle.
Yeah. Let's just go through, we'll dive into one of the most important tools that I think, and that I've worked with NBA players is building your confidence. And I have a 7-step way to build the unshakable confidence. And we'll go through a couple of them. One of them is confidence through comparison. So I think it's really big on, obviously, comparison. The Instagram way is not good, but comparing yourself with somebody who has been to the level you want to be at. Like for myself, for example, I found the best shooting coach in the NBA, and I called him, I emailed him, I sent him letters. I even traveled out to Las Vegas so I could see him at NBA Summer League. And it's that work that I put into it. He saw it, took me under his wing, and helped me along my path. So somebody has been where you want to get, and you can literally make them your mentor. You can make them your friend. You can learn from them. So confidence comes. There's a lot of confidence that comes through in the comparison. Like Kobe, he basically copied everything Jordan did, literally to the exact way that he answers questions in his interviews. And so that's really big. And then another one is, we talked about redefining vocabulary, but confidence through strength focus. And it's far too often we are told that we are our weaknesses, that we have to improve our weaknesses, that we highlight our weaknesses, and so society does as well. But we all have a strength. We all have a God-given gift that we're able to share with this world. And focusing on that, as opposed to focusing on what we're not, is a huge, huge confidence tool that we have. And I'll go one more for you. Confidence through creating your own highlight reel. And we all have these moments in our lives, whether it's a business call, a meeting, or for my NBA players, it's their best game that they've had, where they've just been at their absolute best. They've literally been in the zone. And I have them watch those clips of their best game for every single morning and every time before they step on the floor. So they're living in this, who they are, not this questioning self-doubt that the world might say they are, that they might let creep in, but they're living in their zone, their highlight reel. And we all have that moment, and we all have that opportunity to do so. And how powerful visualization is just takes it to another dynamic.
So, I mean, do you think it's always been this way? I mean, there's clearly a problem with people right now being able to think their way through life and set these targets and get after them. Or do you think it's sort of a recent phenomenon given whether it's social media, just the way the world works right now? I mean, how do you sort of view why this is the case?
It's a really good question. And I think it's always been this way at the core, but I think it's really, really been highlighted lately with social media, with people being able to see everybody else. Because think about it, even when I was we were growing up, like I had no idea what other basketball players were doing outside of my little town. All I compared myself was my little town. Now today, I mean, if you're not having tons of likes on your picture, like you're feeling down, you're feeling depressed about it. So I think this feeling of not enough and just wanting to give up is really, really emphasized now more than it has been. And it's a battle. Like it's a constant struggle, and people will just literally give up, but it takes time.
So you think it's sort of more comparison than anything else?
I think it's more comparison than anything else. And I think it's more wanting to be somebody else, thinking the grass is greener mindset, when like if everybody could just look inside, like I know it's tough, but just look inside yourself and realize, okay, this is my gift. Like I can share this with the world. I can help make the world a better place through this gift that I have been given. Now, it might not be as Instagram cool or make as much money as somebody else's, but I'm going to do it to the best of my ability and help the people around me. Like if we could all just step back and just look at that and try to take a step towards that, like it would be so freeing for people.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that this is how I always tell people too, like comparison and modeling can work sometimes, like you're talking about with Kobe copying Jordan's sort of approach to the game. But very few times does that work where you sort of take someone else's template and put it in your life and expect the same outcome. You have such a different background. Like the best thing to do generally is think about where you want to go, look down to see where your feet are, and then start taking steps in the direction where you want to go. Because if you're trying to walk where somebody else is, it's never going to work.
Man, that's so good. And even to tie it into nutrition and health, it's like you see somebody else who has this six pack or the muscles you want, or looking at like the body that you want, but they're completely different. Like you can say put the same fuel in, but you can't put the same fuel in you do to different types of cars. We're all different. Like for myself, I had a lot of friends. We have a lot of friends that are just chiseled off eating like high amounts of fat, or they're eating just carnivore. Like for me, that didn't work. And I thought like being like that was, I compared myself to them and I was like, why does it work for them? It doesn't work for me, but it's different. I realized what my strengths were, and what I should focus on.
And I think that's where people have this sort of confidence lapse where they go, oh, I'm doing what they're doing, yet it's not working for me. I must be doing wrong and it's my fault.
Yeah, absolutely. 100% agree with that.
So what did you find worked out for you?
I found that actually having a 40, so we're going to go macros here for you, 40 carbs, 40 protein, 20 fat, to have it more low fat and to have my carbs after workouts with a higher protein. That's really transformed my body. When I went into quarantine, and I wanted to do it as a way to show people that you can build habits and make them a lifestyle. I went into quarantine in February, like 18.5% body fat. Now I'm down to 8.5 just through daily steps and doing and sticking with my routine. Even when I fall off the horse, sometimes I get right back on. But yeah, that's my go-to.
I mean, what are the pitfalls you see people, obviously there's a confidence for comparison. Where are other places that people can maybe get stuck with trying to reach their goals once they set them?
I think people just look too narrow, too short term. And when something gets hard, they they give up on it, or they think failure is the worst thing. But instead, we should embrace something that's difficult is something we should absolutely embrace. And I call it the thriving over just surviving. Instead of keeping your head above water and just trying to kick and breathe, like you can actually thrive through those situations, through those difficult situations. And it's interesting, you know, like anything that I have that's happened to me quickly and that I've been given, and I took it for granted. I didn't appreciate it as much. Like for being 27 years old and a coach in the NBA, like it was way too early for me. I burnt out fast in that. I wasn't at my best self that I could have been. So I don't like anything that comes to me easy. I want it to come to me hard. That way I have more appreciation for it. And that way I know I'm way more prepared for it. So I think the self-doubt is really, really big. And us just telling ourselves these thoughts like, oh man, I'm not confident, or, oh, I'm not a good speaker, or, oh, I can't do this. Like you say those like saying negative words out loud are 7 times more powerful than not even saying anything. So speaking these negativity words, like literally that's what builds, and we go really in depth, like the myelin in your brain for the muscle memory. You're either building it in positive or you're building it in negative, and it's your decision to make. So long-winded answer. Yeah. It's the self-doubt, and it's just giving up too early.
Yeah. And I think that's one of those things too, where you're talking about before, failure is the only way you learn. And the thing is, Ray Dalio has quoted as pain plus reflection equals progress. Wow. And the way I view, you know, quote unquote failure, or just not going in the direction you want, is just now you know another way not to do. So you're just like, okay, you've eliminated one thing that now you can sort of whittle down the options to get where you want to go. Yeah. I mean, that's sort of how I approach my personal life. This is like sort of baked into all the businesses that I have, which is, you know, we didn't get what we wanted. Why is that the case? Can we learn from it? Obviously, yes, every time you can, and then keep going. But to say like, oh, that means I failed or I didn't get the outcome I wanted, therefore now I need to just retreat and try something completely different and have a different goal. Like my goal wasn't right. You know, that's I think a tough pill for people to swallow, and not a great way to do it. And so that all the self-talk comes, et cetera. And I'm sure conversely, positive self-talk is, you know, quite a benefit if you do that appropriately.
Yeah. And I mean, like for you, for example, you have 2 great businesses, but I'm sure they didn't just hit a home run right off the start, but everybody sees you as who you are now. And they're like, wow, I wish I was Anthony. But like I know you've went through struggles, and I know it hasn't been easy along the way. And like, just for example, my uncle, the NBA champion head coach, they see him now, but nobody saw him 27 years in preparation.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's obviously a lot of work to keep picking yourself up and dusting yourself off. And, you know, what I'm curious about is, like you said before, you had a goal of being an NBA player, didn't work out, but, you know, like where is the sort of middle ground here where you need to have a reality check sometimes and think, okay, I need to adjust this and pivot away from the goal I had and establish something new?
Yeah, that's a great question. And then it's pursuing your goals, pursuing your dreams for sure, but also being open to know that it actually might not be the way that you foresee it. And you have to be open to that. Like you have to be open to hey, this door closed. Does that mean that there's 4 doors waiting to open for me? Like, how can I use what I thought was my goal, what I thought was my life mission, but to actually not look at it like, hey, that's wasted time, but it just prepared me for something else. So like our gift and our big opportunity is going to come in a package, but a package that is gift wrapped in a completely different way than we expect. And yeah, go at your dream, as hard as you possibly can, but be open to know that it might be just that slight pivot you need to take to actually see what your true meaning is.
So what should people do as far as, you know, establishing, is this door fully closed or not? Because I think that sometimes that's a confusing thing for people.
Yeah. And there's no like set structure, like, hey, the door's slammed closed. Like for me, it kind of was when I was cut from that joke of a team and I realized it, but it hadn't worked out for me before that, where I could have thought that, hey, now the door's closed. And there's no really time that I can say, hey, you know, it's absolutely closed. That's honestly a great question. And I should probably come up with some kind of theory for like, hey, you've gone at it this many years, now try to look at the pivot. But I think it's just constant reflection. Like you said, Ray Dalio was talking about just a constant reflection of yourself and going over and reassessing where your passion is, reassessing what your goals are. And when you do that, and when you constantly reflect, you're able to learn more about yourself. A lot of us just kind of just go like I get in the habit of this too. It's a bad habit. It's just like, I just do without just calming, taking time for myself and actually reflecting on where I'm at. So I think that's probably the most powerful tool you can use to realize if that door is closed.
Yeah. So how often do you recommend people sort of reflect and revisit their benchmarks where they want to go?
Well, benchmarks, I would say once a month, but we'll reflect every day. And I have a thing I call the big three, where I'll set the three main things that I want to get done or I want to grow in for that day. And I'll do it in the evening so that I know when I wake up the next morning after I go through my morning routine in time that I'm able to attack those three things. And then I get to reflect on it at night. Hey, did I get these things? Did I accomplish these things? If I didn't, why didn't I? It's okay if I didn't. I just move them over to the next day. But it's the constant habit of reflecting on, your daily wins, because everything is a accumulation of these 1% daily steps that we take forward to make the big picture. Like the macros we want, but the micros are so important.
Yeah. I mean, I did a podcast earlier with David Goggins, who complete savage. And I mean, he said that he takes 2 hours at the end of his day to stretch and just be silent and reflect on how his day went. 2 hours every day.
It's amazing, man. I wish I could say the same thing. I build in 5-minute reflections throughout the day with when I eat my meals, and I just have 5 minutes that I'll put on the clock and reflect. And hey, five minutes feels like a long time. I can't imagine 2 hours.
Yeah. I mean, I do sort of like I have a very strict sort of tracking document that I use in notebooks, notepads, sort of like that. But yeah, it's nowhere near 2 hours. The guy's a savage.
Yeah, but you even hit on a point, like we have to track. Like if you don't track things, if you don't track your little wins and your success and your growth, like we don't know. Like it's just like if you don't track your weight, you don't have any clue. So I love how you say that I'd love to hear your in-depth tracking method, because I'll probably steal it.
Yeah, it's a crazy spreadsheet. I could send you a copy of it. I think I have a template floating on the internet somewhere. But yeah, I mean, I think that this is another thing people get caught up in the momentum of life so much, and they get sort of taken away in the current of just reacting to everything instead of pausing to reflect. And I think if people just did that once really quick in the morning, once really quick at night, a little bit longer in the weekend, even longer in a month, a little bit longer in the year, like I think that's just that act alone, without all of the sort of the tricks and tips that you have, is invaluable.
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. It's just, people, I mean, they don't take time to reflect. And that's when they wake up 10 years from now and they're like, how did I get here? Why am I so stuck? And that's a main reason why I wrote Pivot and Go, is for people that felt stuck in a situation, who thought they were going to take over the world after they came out of college and they're 35 and they can't get out of what they're in. And I mean, now we kind of all feel stuck in this quarantine life that we don't know what's going to go on. But yeah, I mean, the daily reflection is vital. Yeah.
How have some of you NBA players handled quarantine, especially with shutting it down and like staying consistent in training for the restart?
Yeah, it's interesting. So you'll find out which players really love the process and really love competing in the game, and the other guys that just love the lifestyle. So we've seen as the games have been coming back, like who really prepared during these 3 months that they had. And I had a couple of guys, really good players out here with me in LA. We were working out 7 a.m, just finding like warehouses to work out in. Like those guys are the ones that really want it. But it's definitely even players at that high level. Some of them just like to live the lifestyle.
What do you think drives that? Just, they did really well when they were younger, and they just sort of kept doing it. And they wanted the money. They don't really have a love of the game and winning. And like what are what's the difference between these two guys?
Yeah, for sure. And it goes back to what we talked about. Like it was never hard for them. There was nothing ever difficult. It was just given to them. They have these God-given abilities, these unbelievable gifts, and they didn't have to struggle through anything. Now the guys that really put in that really want it, like they're doing it for something else. And I think one of the most, we've talked about doing it for more than yourself, but one of the most underrated skills And I talked with Tucker Max about this, is like some guy, like to have success, like you have no other option. Like some of these players come from nothing. Like they were on the streets. Like they have no other option. So they have that burning desire. It's not like, oh, if you don't get it, it's okay. Well, we got this comfy thing for you here. So it's either that struggle is so real and so important for us to go through these difficult times. And the guys that have done it, and the guys that have the passion, and the guys like the LeBrons who, like, he's the ultimate optimization guy. He's got the God-given ability. He puts in the relentless work. He understands total optimization for sleep. He invests $1.2 million in his body just for recovery. Like, that's when you put together that ultimate player.
Yeah, I mean, these are some of the people that impress me the most, that they go and then win it once, and then like you said, there is no struggle, and then just keep being on the top of the game and keep going after it year after year after year. I mean, that to me is the most impressive. Yeah,
it's like the Jordan documentary. Like that guy was at the top of the world, but he just kept he just loved the competition. And I have people that know him really well. Like they'll play him in ping pong, and he will not stop playing until he wins. Like he's going to beat you at everything. Right. He's just got that competitive gene.
So, I mean, with people maybe who do have success and do reach some of these milestones, what is something they could do to keep refreshing and keep getting after it? I know, it's like I've seen a lot of people where they have one big win in life and they sort of get complacent, and then after a long period of time becomes sort of lack of meaning, lack of purpose, depression, etc.
Yeah, success is one of the most difficult things to deal with, and it's really hard when you've wanted something for so long and then you hit it. That's why, like, when you set your goal and you hit it, then you're like, okay, then what comes next? And that's really where it comes down to reassessing, reflecting, understanding what your bigger purpose is than yourself. Like, let's say you start a $1 million company or $1 billion company. Boom, there it is. You probably feel really good about yourself when you let off the gas pedal a little bit. But now what if you could feed 1 million people through that company? Like, just continuing to reassess why you've been given these amazing opportunities, these amazing accomplishments that you have came across, and like, how can you further it more? If you can just look at the core, how can you further it more for others? You're never going to have this feeling of, oh, I'm done, I'm complacent, I'm feeling like I'm depressed because I've had this success. Like, you'll always continue to want more in a healthy way of wanting more.
Yeah, I mean, some of the things that I've learned just personally is, if there are successes, it's like, I mean, Goggins in the podcast I did with him said, you have one day to celebrate and then get back to work. And like you said, the struggle and sort of pushing yourself into areas where, they're uncomfortable, but afterwards they're very rewarding. Like, that's sort of like where the meat of life is, for me, at least. And it's tough when you can be comfortable to intentionally be uncomfortable.
Yeah, that is a great point. And anytime that I have, or like you said, that you felt like you've had great growth, it was going through some kind of fire and some kind of, like, that's how diamonds are made, through the pressure, through the intense heat. And it's just like, it's tough to see it out of it.
I mean, everything sort of sucks. I mean, the things that are good for you suck the most when you're doing it, especially for the first time. Even like you said, like taking a cold shower sucks, uncomfortable, but is amazing for your body. Having a hard workout, doing things like, for instance, you pivoted to being an author. I'm sure those first couple of pages are just like
absolutely
a struggle. I mean, I went through the same thing as well. And I think, like, reinventing yourself and reestablishing this beginner mindset over and over and over again, like, that habit alone becomes easier the more you do it, but it doesn't make it any easier when you sort of dive in time after time after time on things where you're new or you're uncomfortable. I mean, you're also a speaker, and I think that probably the first couple of times you spoke in front of a couple dozen people was nerve-wracking, and then you get over it, and then you develop these skills, and you look back and you go, oh, great, this is like, it's so satisfying to look back and be like, okay, I faced that and I grew and I improved because of it.
Man, no doubt. And as much as I talk about confidence and teach confidence to NBA players, like, every time before I speak in front of a company, I'm nervous. And I don't look at it as like nervous, I'm afraid anymore, as I did at the start. It's nervous. This is great. Bring it on. Like, these nerves are going to help me carry me to a higher level than I would be without them. So it's basically embracing the suck and knowing that this is the way that you can grow and that you will grow.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough. What are some of the uncomfortable things you're doing currently in your life?
Trying to make this book a bestseller and literally calling every bookstore and doing everything possible that I can to get it out there. Continue to give talks, and I give talks in different areas than I'm normally in my straight wheelhouse. You know how you've given a talk many times and you like basically can say it from memorization. I'm trying to I'm reaching out to different areas of leadership, different areas of growth. And it is uncomfortable after the first couple of times of doing it. And I mean, continuing to, like, one thing honestly is, hey, I'm living the life that I love. Like, literally it's an amazing life, but how can I keep pushing the needle forward? How can I keep helping other people like you or other friends? How can I help them reach their goals?
What's going to come next after you hit bestseller status?
Oh, no question. I've got the next book already 70% of the way done. And it is the 1% rule, 99 steps to get 1% better. So that's the first time I've dropped that on a podcast. That's coming. And I'm just going to continue to speak a book a year, basically like Tony Robbins meets John Maxwell and John Gordon with some sports background all combined.
I think you have what it takes, my friend. You found what you're natural at, and maybe not NBA player, but you're the sort of the Jordan of mindset, man. It's like every time I chat with you, you're so positive, so great, and so amazing. So, I mean, thanks for being on the show and chatting about all this stuff, and maybe let people know where they can find the book and any other work that you're doing.
Dude, thank you, and thank you for all that you do and the journey that you've been through and the inspiration that you are. Like, when we first met, we just absolutely hit it off because that's the type of person you are, which is huge credit to you. And to find the book, you find it wherever books live. You can go on Amazon and find it, davidnurse.com. You can follow me on social at David Nurse NBA on Twitter and Instagram. My podcast, the 1% Podcast, which you absolutely crushed. And I guess we could just, if you want to come out here to LA and go to Air One and hang out, we can do that too.
Nice, man. Well, thanks again for your time. Chat soon.
Dude, you're the best.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Natural State Podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, I'd really appreciate you heading over to whatever service you're listening to this podcast on, dropping me a 5-star review and your thoughts on the show. This helps us get discovered by more people and spreading the good gospel of health. And if you want to stay plugged into all of my self-health experiments, recent research in books that I'm reading and my interpretations of those things, products that I'm testing, and thoughts on all things related to health, check out my free weekly newsletter called The Feed. You can sign up for that at dranthonygustin.com/thefeed. That's dranthonygustin.com/thefeed. Thanks again for tuning in and your support of the Natural State Podcast.